Hello everyone and welcome to UK Kickstart, the agency panel. My name is Martin Fullard. I'm the editor of Conference News magazine and also the editorial director at MASH Media. Now I'm delighted to be joined by an esteemed panel, but there has been one last-minute change. Unfortunately, Lex Butler, chair of the Hotel Booking Agents Association, has had to drop out because she has had to quarantine. But fear not, she has sent us a pre-recorded video message, which I'm kindly going to ask our team to play to you now.
Hi everyone, my apologies that I can't be with you today. This is our new normal. I was due to be with you right up until yesterday lunchtime when I got a track and trace call, and so now to protect you and to protect myself, I'm now isolating, so you get me virtually. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Lex Butler. I'm founder of brand engagement agency Wolf & White and current chair of HBAA. I still can't get my head around what has happened in the last 6 months in the world, let alone our beloved industry. We were the first to ask to shut our doors, no mass gatherings, and now being the first or the last to be asked to open our doors. Our industry's been decimated, from thousands of job losses across the sector to companies actually shutting their doors permanently. And these are people that have been around for decades. They've been founding businesses in our industry and they've had to shut their doors. It has been heartbreaking and really sad to see. Our clients have all reevaluated and continue to reevaluate what they're doing and what their future strategies are. Are they financially viable to do events in the future? Does policy and due diligence inside our corporate clients now mean that they just don't want to risk doing events? It's all very much up in the air and it has impacted us greatly. Freelancers in our critical support network are having an extremely tough time. And we know, every one of us knows how much we rely on those freelancers and support network. And at the moment, they're going out there getting jobs in supermarkets. They're getting PA jobs. They're working in project management across different sectors outside of events. Anything to put food on the table and anything to have some work. Our huge supply chains that we rely on to do everything that we do have been impacted. Years of crucial relationships that we've built have now gone because maybe those people have shut their doors. Maybe those people have lost those jobs. Service agreements that we've had in place are now being uprooted and reevaluated, or they've just disappeared altogether. We are in turmoil as an industry and it is extremely tough. But why we're here today is to come together and to make sure that we stand as one industry and that we push forward. We can do that. It's so important that we come together as an industry and not show only just government or our clients, but consumers, your friends and families, and the general public that we're still here and that we're still much needed. For hundreds of years, and I'm guessing hundreds of years because I can't imagine a time when there wasn't events, our industry has been curated, touching lives and influencing the world with our events. I mean, just name some few, like presidential elections, the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, launching blockbuster drugs across the world, world leader conferences, brand and product launches, to weddings and festivals. Everything that we do touches lives and creates memories, influences policy, saves lives, changes the world. And we need to stand together and remind people that our industry is needed and we are still here and they need to take notice. This year's been absolutely insane for HBAA. When I stood at our first year annual conference and addressed our membership, I did not think that I'd be sitting here 6 months later, having gone through what we've gone through with our members. Our priority was always and always is our members, and they've been going through crisis. So we've been working with them, creating bite-sized webinars to talk about how to manage redundancies, how to manage furlough, share information and insights to make sure that they were having the support that they needed while they were going through such a tough time. It's made us realise that we've had to evaluate our own association as well. So we will be launching on the 6th of October our own event, how we're going to reevaluate and change our association to be future fit for our members and for this industry. There is a lot that we didn't realise that needed to be done to make sure that we are stronger and that we can survive in the future. We've spent a lot of time as a partner of BVP working with them to share data on what our members are going through, what their opinions are, what their data is. It's so important to be able to go to government to prove what we're worth, to prove how many people we employ, to prove what we bring to the economy. So I also want to do a personal reach out to you that if you get a request to take a survey, and we all hate taking surveys, but it comes from an association or it comes from somebody who desperately is trying to advocate our industry, please take those few minutes to answer that survey, because you are then contributing to the data that is going to give us a louder voice. I know Rick is there to talk to you today about One Industry, One Voice, which I ask you all to commit to. Wolf and White, HBAA have committed to it. It is an important, imperative and exciting campaign to drive our message to government, to general public and to consumers and to our clients. So please listen to him and please stand with him and everyone else that has taken the time to put this campaign together. Government needs to identify us, they need to appreciate us, and they need to understand what we need to get back to business. Our clients need confidence from us. It will only come from us. That we can deliver safely, that we can deliver in a COVID world. I think the theme is confidence, but it all only comes from us. We need to stand together and give everyone else confidence. I hope you have an amazing day at this Kickstart event, and I'm super sad that I can't be with you, but I'll hand it back to Martin and the boys. Have a good day.
Thank you, Lex. Now, before we introduce our panel, we are live here at ETC Venues in the heart of London. We have got people in the building with us, and we've got a big online audience too. We do want to hear your questions, so do head over to the Glisser site, which I believe is glisser.live. That information should have been readily available on the event insight, and we want to, of course, make sure you have your say. So do fire your questions in, and we'll get the good ones to the panel in due course. So I think there's a total number of years experience on this stage that I couldn't begin to calculate. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. David, if we could start with you, please.
Hi, I'm David Watt, CEO of CI Group, and I guess I've been in the events industry for over 25 years, and probably have seen a couple of horrendous wars, 2 recessions, but never have I seen anything as unprecedented as this. And I think today it's I want to thank ETC Venues for putting this on. It's really amazing, and I think we're here to reach out today to those businesses who are struggling and to try and give them some guidance and advice, but more importantly to all the individuals that have been really affected in our industry. Those people that are at risk of redundancy or on furlough. We've got some kind of sound tips for you guys as well, so keep listening and I'm sure we'll be able to give you some good content.
Thank you, David. Chetan, who, by the way, very kindly stood in for Lex. There's not a typo or anything like that.
Thank you, Martin. I'm Chetan Shah, CEO, founder of Micebook'S digital, live and content. Delighted to be here, and as ever, we just adapted, right? And that's what we do as an industry, so happy to jump in. This is what we do.
Thank you, Chetan. And Rick.
Hi, everyone. Rick Stainton, founder and group executive director of Smyle, a creative agency. Been going about 16 years, delivering experiences globally for a variety of FTSE 100 and Fortune 500 companies. Also the founder of One Industry, One Voice, which you may hear a little bit about later.
Thank you. Okay, guys, so first question really, and David, I'd like to start with you purely because you're sitting closest. We don't want to, go over this well-worn path that we know the industry's been devastated and impacted. We don't need to go over that old record. But it does go without saying that it's been a tough time for all businesses. So I'm kind of curious, really, considering that there is a small pulse of business starting to return, how have you been able to keep your team motivated and sharp, and how have you had to realign your business to work towards this so-called new normal?
Well, it took a little while to adapt, I must admit, but I think within a few weeks we realised that there were 3 really key things that we needed to deliver. So 1, how did we retain our best people? 2, how do we provide some kind of continuity for our customers? And then 3, how do we embrace technology, knowing that we were going to come out of COVID with a new set of objectives and expectations? So I think to answer the first thing about our team is obviously we had to furlough quite a lot, but we kept engaged with them. We had group calls with them every day. We actually retrained those people, and we actually kind of took them along a journey. And interestingly, coming out of that, the people that did adapt and retrain, embrace technology, provided stuff for our customers, are actually the people that now are back in our business full time, that have got new roles, and they're actually pushing forward, and they're making big differences for our customers. And the customer piece is we started doing business continuity reports, advising our customers of what's going to be happening in their industry, what's happening in our industry, not just in events, but in a broader sense. And then the third thing that we did was really embrace technology. So we looked at how we were going to deliver, live experiences in a virtual sense or a hybrid sense. And then we also looked at different types of applications. So we built something called We Are Live, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. But that's basically an app to get us back to live events. So those are the things that we focused in on.
That's quite an interesting point. I guess almost the role of many of your staff almost changed and went from maybe the traditional project management side to actually perhaps more of a selling side, because when business comes back, and we are starting to see a trickle, they need to hit the ground running.
Well, of course, because we had an enormous amount of people that are highly skilled in project management, fantastic logistics, fantastic delivery, understanding how you can bring a live experience to life and how you can engage an audience. But unfortunately, we're not in a project management stage anymore. We're in a brand engagement stage. So we had to retrain all of our project managers to understand that brand engagement, how you actually deliver value with the customers, and a lot of them retrained, and now they're doing really, really well. And we're seeing lots of business coming back now because we can put our team and we can retrain our team and we can put them at the forefront of our customers and the brand engagement.
Rick, maybe I could kind of come to you with the same question, really. How did you sort of galvanise your team at Smyle? Was it a case of keeping them communicated with, keeping them upskilled during this, so we can come back with a bang?
Yeah, effectively, Smyle is very fortunate to have a very strong culture. We've got an amazing group of people that all look out for each other, and that was the number one modus operandi for us right now. Different people react to the situation in different ways, just depending on their own personalities and their confidence in the industry. So I think the first thing that we made sure we do, as David said, is communicate with them, not shy away from what's going on in the macroeconomic situation. Be honest with them, be transparent with them. Increasingly do large-scale conversations across company meetings, individual meetings, team meetings, and consistently message across the fact that we're going to do a lot of things to combat the situation that's been presented to us as an agency and as an industry. And not shy away from the difficult conversations of the fact that business is severely suffering. Not shy away from the fact that there will be a remodelling of the business. But we're a positive industry. The essence of what we do is about delivering messages, communicating and encouraging behavioural change. That's what our focus is on for the benefit of our clients and our services. So I think our mantra was to sort of bring that very much into our own team culture. And very quickly, some brilliant members of the team from all different levels of seniority recognised that digital and virtual, at least in the short term, was necessary to adapt to. We were all already doing quite a lot of streaming events. We have a digital and video team in-house, but fortunately, obviously, we had a content and a strategy team as well, and combining them and getting them to work on solutions by listening to clients of what they were prepared to do and use their budgets for, because they still need to communicate with their audiences, internal or external. So that was a big, very fast-tracked development that was going to probably take us years, that then took, frankly, weeks. And we launched Beyond, which was our digital, virtual and hybrid offering. And so far it's been going very well. I don't know if you saw, there was some press on our Samsung activation we did a few days ago, which we feel is one of the leading ways of now doing this with it underpinned by a gaming platform. So transparency, commitment to the fact that different people will deal with it in different ways. Some people are always optimistic and positive and just can go for it. Other people, depending on their individual situations, will feel less confident and they need really nurturing and looking after. So a culture club approach. We had many different activities that we did to keep the mental health of people going, because not just sitting at home working 8-10 hours a day plus on Zoom is depressing enough as it is, but it's also incredibly exhausting. And then when you couldn't actually, for many months, go out into the real world, you know, it was our responsibility to make sure that we had other positive, fun activities that they can engage with. And I won't list them all off, but, you know, they were the weird, wonderful, and the wacky. And they added a sense of proportion maybe to things, that we were still all together, we could do some fun stuff together. So yeah, you know, now we've got perhaps, you know, a motivated team still that have a plan. And to have a plan includes, one of the big things out of this, I think, is collaboration externally. So we've been reaching out to other organisations, reaching out to partners, reaching out to new partners as well, and seeing if we can help each other. And that's been quite a motivational element as well, because they're then exploring and learning about other skill sets that we can incorporate into our offering to clients. And in conjunction with talking to clients, what they also want, listening, learning, and then adapting.
Excellent. Chetan, I know obviously we haven't prepared any questions specifically for you, so it's going to be a bit of throwing you in at the deep end, but you've been very active during COVID in terms of engaging the agency community at large. Have you heard of any interesting stories and any strong case studies of an agency that's perhaps tried something different with realigning their business and is preparing themselves in a different way to anyone else going ahead into this new normal?
Nothing that sort of springs to mind, but the ones that have really thrived are the ones that have the breadth of service offering. So if you were a venue find agency only, I feel like they're the ones that probably struggled the most because of their business model. They only get cash once that event delivers. And they spent months and months working with clients to try and get their cancellations done. And a lot of them didn't even get paid a commission from the cancellation fee. So they struggled, and they probably have found it the hardest. Whereas the other side of the agencies, who have a communications arm, of course, backed by technology, because that is the only way to communicate in these current times, they've thrived, they've done really well. And some of those have also put out a helping hand to the venue find agencies, or ones that couldn't quite pivot to for their clients to deliver that communication message. They partnered. So that, I think, has been really good for some agencies who've done that. And people here as well have said, look, if we can help or assist, it's not about stealing clients or anything like that, but if we can help and assist, keep your clients, keep your teams, keep the good work that's being done going by partnering and having clear lines of responsibility, then let's do that. And that's been, I think, a really good way of, I guess, a new way of certain agencies working. And then some have just pivoted massively to technology and broken the bounds of what was able to be done digitally, and those ones are thriving.
Good stuff. Now, those of you watching may have heard of an industry campaign called One Industry, One Voice. And one of the driving forces behind that, very enthusiastically, is, of course, Mr. Rick Stainton, who joins us on stage. So, Rick, this is, I think, a really good opportunity to push this message out much further. Can you explain to our audience exactly what One Industry, One Voice is all about, and what is the next stage?
Well, thank you, Martin, for that opportunity. So, in a short version, because I have done this script a number of times over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and there are longer versions. In a short version, about 5 weeks ago, I was invited to a Get Britain meeting event which Mash Media organised, with a number of, well, most age associations were on there, as well as some key leaders of the industry. And the mission was to come up with a positive campaign that wasn't directed necessarily well, the idea was to come up with a campaign to start with. And with 15 minutes notice, Martin very kindly responded to an email I sent to him a few days beforehand detailing my idea, which was a positive campaign that would demonstrate what's been missing in this industry for decades, which is an understanding at the national press level and the public level of what we actually do, the power of what we do, the millions of lives we touch and the different ways we do it. So I came up with the idea of One Industry, One Voice, which would hopefully galvanise a mandate to get proper cross-representation across the industry. And that is in the sporting sector, the cultural sector, the music sector, the weddings and private party sector, the corporate sector, and the exhibition sector. I've missed one, apologies, very importantly, the charity sector. And the power of the events that they deliver create experiences for people and touches them in many different ways. So we create experiences what seem to be a very all-embracing, sort of banner of which we could operate under. So one industry, one voice was a mandate that we got by reaching out to as many different organisations, from the biggest to the sole traders to the freelancers, that worked in all these different sectors, to create and ask them, more importantly, to create 3 or 4 key messages and issues that they felt the public, the national press needed to understand. And pretty much 99% came back when we listened that they wanted the public and the national press to actually understand what we do, the size of what we do, the professionalism of what we do, the global leadership we have in the UK, and therefore the second key message was, trust us, we can deliver safely. And there are now, 5-6 weeks on, enough guidelines and work being done across agencies, venues, hotels, organisations and other bodies for guidelines to be adopted in biosecurity, and examples of it are here, obviously here today in a live environment. But obviously from October the 1st, there is an opportunity for us to go bigger than just 30 people across most indoor events. So I wanted a positive campaign that didn't target government at all. There's enough great work happening there across associations, across some other campaigns, but they are focusing on government lobbying for specific sector areas, particularly in music, theatres and that sort of area, for government support. I wanted to do something that balanced that, which was a positive campaign to demonstrate that across the power events to celebrate, the power events to inspire, the power events to educate, the power events to support society, crossing all those aforementioned genres of what we deliver, with a mandate that I've listened to the whole industry and a cross-representation, and that the one industry, one voice says what it does on the tin. And then it all, I'm looking at Simon Hughes, it all just sort of cascaded really. In the last 4 weeks, we have hundreds and hundreds of businesses who are supporting us. We've set up a PR fund on a Just Giving page to create a PR fund to appoint an agency, a PR agency, which we've done a pitch process and we appointed one today. We targeted £30,000. We're going to reach probably £50,000 in the next week or so, which is phenomenal. And just want to say thank you to everyone who supported us. We have freelancers giving £10 and they haven't had any income for 6 months. We have some organisations giving thousands, whatever they can afford. And if you can't afford to give anything, that is not a problem. We just want your support. Okay? Everyone's contributing in different ways, and that's the mantra behind this. So the idea is that the PR agency, with our One Industry, One Voice action group that has a representation across many different sectors, there's some agencies, venues, freelancer networks, exhibition organisers, the wedding industry is represented, sporting industry is represented, technical services represented. That action group of about 25 people is representing the sort of 300-400 businesses now contributing and supporting, to brief and go with the PR agency to deliver a campaign in the next 3-4 weeks. Timing is everything here, so we might wait and see when is the most appropriate time. Bear in mind the recent news in the last few days of what's going to be right sensitivity-wise, to deliver a campaign that demonstrates that we can reassure you that we are experts, inspire them by all the amazing content we've got we can deliver through the campaign, and underpin that through the BVP and Simon, a credibility of stats and figures that the national press particularly like to back up with a narrative. And the idea and the message is that the national press and the public will then get our power, our impact on the economy, our professionalism, and then trust us that we can deliver safely. Because that is the thing, if you look at all the surveys, there's no pent-up problem with demand for returning to events and experiences. The bookers want to go back to live, just don't quite understand or have the confidence yet that we are, as an industry, able to do it. And that's the idea behind the campaign.
Thank you, Rick. David, if I could come back to you, with what Rick's just said in mind, how do you think the government sort of handled this? I mean, I think perhaps we might have been overlooked in terms of what we can do to help, in terms of our project management expertise, our capacity for track and trace, and our innovation.
Yeah, well, I'll come back to that in a second, Martin, but I'd just like to say, you know, I think we should all kind of applaud Rick and his energy and effort he's putting behind One Industry, One Voice. And but I think that is the essence of what we've got to get out there, what we've got to achieve. But I also think that our associations could take could maybe take a more pragmatic financial approach and maybe reach out to, you know, one of the big 5 accountancy firms to actually put together a verified piece of, you know, audited material that says what our industry does. Because I think we've got some amazing people in our associations, but unfortunately it doesn't have that gravitas that the accountants can sometimes take to the Treasurer or the government to say what this is worth. So I do feel there's, you know, to underpin the stuff that Rick's doing, we can actually do some proper, detailed deep dive financial kind of information to really support the rest of the industry. And I think that's a very, very important thing to do. And back to kind of how I think the government have handled it, I think in the early days that we were all in the same situation. We didn't know what we were faced with, and we didn't know what the outcomes were going to be. But as we kind of like, as we moved closer, to understanding what the effects were, I mean, we actually lobbied the government ourselves. One of our customers is Capita, who actually do the track and trace, and we put forward our, We Are Live, the application that we designed that you can download 14 days before an event. And you can actually you can self-diagnose within that application. You can also put your test results into it. It also links to live events where you can actually do temperature testing. And it also kind of, we're now actually adding in the fact that you can do an actual test 15 minutes before an event to actually say whether you're free from COVID before you enter that live event. And I just felt that the government didn't actually embrace our industry and look to us as a solution. What they did is they created loads and loads of rules to actually create a barrier to stop us doing things, rather than actually encourage us to invest in technology and to use our experience to actually solve the problem. So I think I think that they could do a lot more to embrace our industry and embrace our skills, as Rick said, to actually make us part of the solution, not look at us as the problem.
Really interesting point, absolutely. David, I'm going to stick with you for this one because I know you and I chatted before we came on stage about this, but I just wanted to know, have you sort of seen any evidence at all that suggests that brands' faith in creating experiences has been negatively impacted by this pandemic, or does it perhaps embolden them that actually connecting with their audiences live has never been more important?
Well, I think there's, I think, I'm talking to lots of big brands. We deal with HP, we deal with PepsiCo, Coca-Cola. We've got some quite big brands on our client list. And as I talk to those people, we kind of understand that at the brand engagement level, they're really excited about getting back to live events. They're really excited about reconnecting with an audience. And they're also understanding about how they need to do that in a hybrid sense. They understand that it's going to be like we have today. We have a mixture of, a big online audience. We have a live audience in various different locations across the country. So they're embracing that. However, I think the thing that our industry needs to start to understand, as those ideas and those engagements get pushed further up to the boardroom, is that unfortunately the CEO or the CMO who have those proposals put in front of them, they're actually being driven by governance. They're being driven by lawyers. They're being driven by risk management. Okay, and unfortunately, COVID, the worst case scenario out of that could unfortunately end in somebody suffering a fatality coming to an event. So what we've got to do as an industry, what we've got to do as leaders, is really understand what that risk management is and how do we overcome it, and then how do we actually reduce that risk. And once we've understood that, and once we can convince the risk managers and the lawyers that it's safe to do so again, then I think the gates will open up for live events again.
Rick, I guess that kind of comes back to corporate confidence, doesn't it, really? I mean, what's your experience over the last month or so speaking to brands? Are they keen to come back? Is it all being driven by those invisible men with pens at the top?
Well, look, you've got to remember, we're not the only industry that's suffering. There's many industries out there that are as bad or are in significant decline. So there's, there are a number of industries that have thrived in this, particularly perhaps the tech sector and maybe the pharma sector has been pretty static, as it always is in these sort of situations. But many sectors are themselves in disarray. So not only are they dealing with, having to communicate with their audiences internally and externally at a normal, on a normal level of situation, they're now remodeling, making people redundant, looking at their income severely damaged, and fighting for what remains of the market share, particularly in the most effective service industries that we all know about. So I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that we, as David said, we need to listen to them. We need to understand their challenges, as we always do as an industry. We're a very adaptable industry. We can, in most areas, when we listen and engage, customize our solutions back to support their business objectives, which is our our main focus as an industry. It should be to deliver behavioural change. And from the messages that most brands are telling us, I mean, they are keener than ever to get out there because they have pent-up demand from their R&D and their pipeline of products. They have a workforce that has been working from home mostly, probably, that need re-engaging as much as they ever have. And that moment when everyone does come together, whether it's in a smaller or larger regional group with a hybrid approach, with some sort of virtual global activation as well that regionals can buy into from a local physical event, will be a momentous moment for every individual company. But we need to demonstrate to them, as the One Industry and One Voice mission is, that we are experts in, and have been for decades, in logistics and production and safety and looking after, probably as much as any industry out there, of people movement and pre-event registration processes and tracking and trace and effect. So if that comes across, an individual venue, which are doing a huge amount of work now, and each individual organiser and agency has biosecurity protocols in place and clearly and effectively demonstrates them to customers, the message should, over time, and we've got to be patient because they're going to be so risk averse, as David said, the last thing they want is their brand, internally or externally, to be affected by the fact that they were rushing or too frivolous. But at the same time, good organising agencies have very strong relationships at high level and are trusted to do multi-million-pound activations that can still make or break a brand in a normal situation because the press are watching, the audience are watching. So those relationships are key. Getting the message across in a simplistic but also a detailed way is key to invoke that trust. There's no lack of demand, it's just the will to go the extra mile, which is to commission, which is a big push. But I think collectively, as One Industry, One Voice, and forget just the campaign for a minute, just a collective industry, we have the professionalism that can convince them and demonstrate tangibly that we have the protocols in place.
Thank you very much, Rick. Chetan, if I could bring you in, do you think that this has revitalised the kind of desire for live experiences?
If anything, yeah, it really has, because you've not been able to do it. You've not been able to have that side conversation when you arrive at a venue before your main plenary or whatever it might be. Those side conversations are now really valued and appreciated, whereas before they just happened and they were just a big part and bonus of a live event. Whereas now you miss them massively. And whilst virtual is a great medium and a bridge to getting back to normal, they will never replace the live experience, the emotion, the way you can capture audiences, convey a message and make it last. I mean, I don't know how long a virtual events experience can really last in your heart in terms of the desire of whatever that product or campaign is about. So live is absolutely key. We, as people, we're humans. We want that live interaction. So I do believe there is a massive pent-up demand. I do believe clients do want to go back to live. I think they've missed it a lot. Different brands will come back quicker, like different sectors. So the automotive sector, drinks brands, for example, will be coming back quicker than, say, other brands that are a bit more risk averse, as Rick said, and we have to appreciate those differences. But there is a pathway and a real desire to get back to live, yes.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because obviously, I mean, I've been involved in more online events during lockdown than I could ever remember. But I'm going to remember this one, here we are today, because it's an experience. I think it's the sense of smell, I think, is the one they say is the one that triggers memories and which is what matters in situations like this. So the online has served its purpose. And yes, we saw some high engagement numbers, but that was, I guess, because a lot of people were sitting at home with not much else to do, right?
And I think the only problem we have, and we've got to address this, is that the hybrid is amazing because of the extended reach that you can have for your messaging. But you've got to, and as an industry we're learning, I think, it does, I feel, cannibalise the live element, because there is that element of, I can just tune in. So there's got to be a way, we've got to make it more compelling to come and to get on that train, to make that journey, to take that time and come to live, because I feel the dropout rates could increase for certain events if you can just tune in. So there is a challenge there that this industry will have to work through, and they will, but that's something to watch out for.
Absolutely. David, did you want to add into that?
Yeah, I'd like to add into that because I think Chetan's absolutely right. We're very, very tribal. We are as a race. We all want to get together, and I think virtual events shouldn't be instead of. They should be as well as, and they should be an actual added factor to that experience. And really, as as an industry, we've got to make sure that when we create a live experience, there is enough compelling content to attract people to it. And then, yes, you can have a virtual engagement on top of that live experience, but it won't be quite the same. Back to your point about the smell, the taste, and wanting to do it. So I do think that there is a place for it, but I think it should be an added feature to our industry, not an instead of, because that will then lose the live experience.
Absolutely.
An example of that is, we're doing, as I mentioned earlier to the audience about We Are Live, the event app that we've designed, is we're doing our first major live event on the 24th of September at Blenheim Palace. We'll have 8,000 people at that event over that 3 or 4 days. And we'll be using trace and track, we'll be using testing, we'll be using technology to make that event happen. So it is possible to do, but there won't be any virtual side to that event at all. That will just be a complete live experience. But again, people will be able to dial in and they'll be able to see some videos and some footage and some content, but it won't be the same as being there, because Salon Privé, which is the event we're running, is basically a car event. So there's nothing like the smell of petrol fumes.
Love it. Rick, did you signal that you wanted to contribute to this?
I just wanted to add that I think we have to be also sensitive that the October the 1st date, where we have the subject to the pilots all going successfully, the ability to do large-scale events from a more corporate perspective, I think it needs to be recognised, and this links back to the One Industry, One Voice and the number of 1 or 2 other campaigns that are more perhaps music and festival orientated, that they don't have a start date and there aren't protocols in place yet for them to operate safely, and they do not have agreed guidelines with the government yet. And I know that a number of people are pushing through the other 2 campaigns that focus more on sort of the venues and music and festivals, that they're pushing for pilots to demonstrate that can be done, though it will be quite difficult, that they have the expertise to, I'm sure, do that. And then on the other side of the coin, because as an industry, what One Industry, One Voice has shown me is that you've got venues and suppliers and caterers and production companies and haulage companies and all sorts of different across the supply chain that operate both in festivals one day, in expo the next, weddings and so on. And a lot of the freelance base obviously work across all these genres, and weddings also don't have a date. And they're a full 15 billion turnover business. Just the bank holiday weekend that went, the busiest weekend for weddings, 4,500 weddings didn't take place in the UK. 500,000 people, therefore, didn't attend a wedding, and 250,000 people didn't work at those weddings supporting them. That's just one weekend, and they don't have a start date either. So, going back to sort of, our campaign and what we're trying to do could convince perhaps more the corporate market and the expo market and public to attend these events. There are still elements of the industry which are in even a worse situation, perhaps the sort of wider corporate market, if I can be so bold to suggest, or the sporting brand experience and so on. And I really wish them that well with their campaign, so that they can get to at least a start date and some guidelines as quickly as possible, so that they can operate as well, because it does still affect, as I say, aforementioned venues, supply chains, freelancers, production companies that work in their sector as well as the broader corporate sector.
Absolutely. I'm obviously conscious of time. We've got 7.5 minutes left and some audience questions to quickly get to, but I just wanted to throw this one at you guys before we move to the audience Q&A. To fully restore confidence, the industry does all need to be on the same side, with obviously client objectives at front and centre all the time. What message do you guys have, as representatives of the agency sector, have to your supplier partners, such as venues, when it comes to things like contracting matters? We're going to have to be flexible for the foreseeable future, more so than perhaps we were previously. David, if I could start with you.
Well, I think I'll probably go back to the beginning of lockdown. We had a lot of overseas events in our calendar, a lot of overseas conferences, a lot of overseas travel, and we reached out to a lot of those suppliers, and every single one, whether it was Italy, whether it was France, didn't matter where it was in Europe or where it was in the world, they showed an ultimate flexibility, and they allowed us to postpone the event or cancel it, and there was no cancellation fees. And I mean nothing at all, which was really, really engaging. But unfortunately, some of the UK stuff that we just had to cancel or move, I don't think the venues were quite so flexible at the way that they looked at their terms and conditions. So I'm not saying that they were trying to, make a profit out of the situation, because that's not right. But all I would say is they weren't as flexible as our European partners. So I'd ask them to start to look at that as a good benchmark. And also today, or the last 2 or 3 days, and a good example of that is the way that EasyJet and British Airways will allow you to book a flight, okay, and allow you to cancel or move 24 hours before, and up to a 12-month postponement, with no fees. So I think our venues have got to kind of look at our European partners, look at our airlines, and try and take some experience from that.
Chetan?
It comes back to confidence. There is a lot of barriers to get clients to book back to live. Now, if you have flexible contracts, those clients, that's a barrier that's going to be knocked over. So if for only that reason, to help the industry move, we're going to need the supplier partners to be as flexible as possible, so those clients can feel more confident about booking live. And if they had to move it, at least they're moving or postponing it. They're not cancelling it, or not even booking if those terms are too prohibitive.
Thank you. And Rick?
Well, I think the realism of the situation needs an open conversation, and in the spirit of collaboration, which I'm hoping is probably one of the most powerful legacies out of all of this for our industry, is what we've been doing effectively in conjunction with our clients, and obviously it's cascaded to our T's and C's, which, as ever, whether there's a COVID situation or not, mirrors obviously a lot of the supplier T's and C's. It is to have sort of a roadmap where at some point, depending on the certain situation of where the event is and the situation with COVID, that there's some little chapters at certain points where you review the situation. Are you comfortable to go ahead with the live? Does it need to be adapted to a hybrid? Or the other way around, if it was already a virtual or hybrid, could it actually go more full live because the situation's developing on a series of timelines? And if you have that already in place at the front end, it basically reassures the client that you're on it and you're fluid with the situation. The suppliers need to align to that. But also it gives some respect as well to the client's biggest worry is obviously brand reputation and doing the right thing for their staff and audiences. So it shows a consultative approach, and everyone should either benefit or be protected accordingly.
Thank you, Rick. Right, we've got just under 4 minutes, so I'm going to squeeze in some questions. Now, I do feel some of these questions may be better suited to the panel that follows this, but as this one's got 37 likes and trumps the rest, I'm going to ask you anyway. You'll need crystal balls, please. Ready them. Does anyone have any idea what type of events we may be actually permitted to do after the 1st of October? So maybe if you look at your own books.
Well, I think we've got to be careful because, if we look at actually what's happened in France and Italy and Germany, we're actually pushing the 1st of October as a live event date. And they were 3 or 4 weeks behind us, in their infections rate. And we look at what's happened at the weekend, and we watch the infection rates go up. So I think that my guess is I think there might be a delay. So if you are going to look at brand engagement for live events, look at things that can be done in a more social distance manner. So look at larger spaces, look at outdoor spaces, look at things of that nature that you can guarantee that will still be able to go ahead with some confidence. I wouldn't be gambling on a conference in a closed room at the minute.
Thank you. Chetan, I'll throw this one to you. It's got 29 likes on the Glisser, and it keeps moving around, so I keep losing it. There we go. The World Health Organization have just warned the UK of a second wave. Do you think the government is going to give us the green light following the pilot events? What's your gut tell you?
I think our rates and the hospital rates and death rates are actually being managed. So, and the government is, in my opinion, of course, very keen for business to start. I mean, it's the other side of the impact of COVID is that we need to get people back into work, businesses operating. So there is a real desire for all sectors to be back to normal. So I think we are, no matter what's happening in the WHO, I think this country is on a path to recovery, and it will try and do its level best to let things happen. But of course, regionally, we don't know. It could be fine for the rest of the country, but a certain region will say, I'm sorry, but that's absolutely the right thing to do.
Thank you, Chet. Rick, in a minute if you can. There's one question here. I don't know who it's from. What can agencies do to help their supply chain, the suppliers, freelancers, etc., that have been seriously impacted by the agencies pulling their support? I'm not sure if that's referring to anyone in particular, certainly not implying it.
I'm not quite sure what agencies pulling their support means. Presumably that's not passing on cancellation elements, maybe. Not booking them and going back out to pitch, rather being loyal to existing suppliers. I don't really know what that reference is. I go back to my original point. You know, the mantra of One Industry, One Voice is collaboration and a cross-representation. We are in this together. And if you're not looking after your freelancers, you're not looking after your supply chain, it will bite you in the bum, because reputation is everything in this industry, and how you look after them and how they act as raving fans for you, both within the industry and they all have contacts with corporates and clients as well, will end up coming around. You know, what comes around goes around, right? So what was the question? What can they do to stop that? Or
To support, what can agencies do to support the suppliers? 10 seconds.
Don't ignore them. Appreciate they're going through exactly the same, if not worse. Get behind One Industry, One Voice.co.uk, just so you know. And let's get the confidence back together.
Thank you very much. The clock has hit 0. We hope you found that useful. Any questions we can answer over email, we will attempt to do so. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of the event.